NATO's preparations for a potential conflict with Russia have been building for some time. As the war between Russia and Ukraine drags on, it's clear that the West's initial strategy was more than just supporting Ukraine's defense. The real aim was to weaken Russia, hoping to prevent any future aggression towards NATO allies in Eastern Europe. But instead of pushing for diplomatic solutions, the West has poured over $200 billion into aid and weaponry, setting the stage for a prolonged conflict. Big defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing are thriving amid the chaos, while Russia has ramped up its own production, outpacing Western arms manufacturers by a significant margin. Despite heavy losses, Russia's industrial base is churning out ammunition around the clock. The commander of the Estonian Defense Forces recently pointed out NATO's grave miscalculation of Russia's capacity to sustain its war efforts. With a larger population and more artillery, Russia has always had the upper hand. Ukraine has made several attempts to regain lost territory, but these efforts have largely fallen short. President Zelensky has been vocal about the need for stronger air defenses and more Western weapons to counter Moscow's moves. Meanwhile, Russia's economy has been surprisingly resilient, growing despite numerous sanctions. This unexpected economic strength has turned Russia into a more formidable opponent, complicating Western strategies. NATO allies are now scrambling to address their underestimation of Russia's capabilities. Military exercises and preparations for a potential conflict are ramping up across Europe. There's a palpable sense of urgency as European nations bolster their defenses. Poland is focusing on filling gaps in its armament supplies and increasing defense spending. Germany is planning extensive military exercises and infrastructure improvements. France has even hinted at the possibility of deploying troops to Ukraine, signaling a significant shift in its military strategy. The UK's head of the army suggested placing society on a war footing, highlighting the need for citizen armies. The concept of conscription is being revisited, reflecting a broader trend towards militarization. Romania, situated near the conflict zone, has signed agreements to enhance naval security and is preparing for potential Russian aggression. The Baltic states are constructing bunkers, anti-tank obstacles, and ammunition depots along their borders with Russia, demonstrating a proactive defense strategy. Scandinavian countries are also ramping up their military readiness. Norway, Sweden, and Finland are increasing their defense spending and readiness levels. This heightened state of alert reflects the perceived threat from Russia, especially after Finland and Sweden's bid to join NATO. Norway's defense minister urged his country to prepare for possible conflict, while Sweden's commander-in-chief stated that all Swedes need to prepare for war. Denmark's defense minister went as far as to say that Russia might test NATO's resolve within a few years. The recent military exercise, Steadfast Defender 24, is NATO's largest since the Cold War, involving nearly 1 million troops. This exercise underscores NATO's shift towards a more militarized stance, preparing for the possibility of a broader conflict. The exercise involves securing the Atlantic, moving troops across Europe, and preparing for a Russian advancement through the Baltic territories into Scandinavia. This comprehensive approach highlights the seriousness with which NATO is preparing for potential threats. The shift from a peace-focused Europe to one preparing for potential war marks a significant change in the continent's approach to security. Economic and diplomatic measures are increasingly giving way to military readiness. European policymakers are adapting to a new reality where military preparedness is paramount. This change is driven by the recognition that traditional peacekeeping and diplomatic efforts may not be sufficient to counter the perceived threats from Russia. As Western allies, including Australia, increase their defense spending and military capabilities, it's clear that the world is preparing for a potential large-scale conflict. Australia's defense minister announced plans to double the country's fleet of warships, reflecting broader Western military strengthening. This move is particularly significant given Australia's strategic position in the Indo-Pacific region and its proximity to China, another major geopolitical player. The West's hardline approach against Russia and its allies is becoming more pronounced, with new sanctions and increased military readiness. Recent sanctions against Iran and Russia, along with potential sanctions on China, highlight the West's determination to cut off Russia's war economy. The EU's agreement to blacklist companies from several countries for their support of Russia indicates a more unified stance against perceived adversaries. This shift is indicative of a broader geopolitical realignment, with alliances and security policies evolving in response to perceived threats. Overall, the narrative paints a picture of a world on the brink of conflict, driven by national security concerns and the need to counter perceived threats. The transition from peace to military readiness in Europe and among NATO allies reflects the changing dynamics of global politics. This evolving landscape underscores the complexities of international relations and the challenges of maintaining peace in a world increasingly defined by military posturing and preparation for potential conflict. This heightened state of military readiness is not limited to Europe. Other regions are also adjusting their defense strategies in light of the current geopolitical climate. The United States, for instance, has been increasing its military presence in Eastern Europe and conducting joint exercises with NATO allies. This move is seen as a deterrent to further Russian aggression and a demonstration of NATO's collective strength. In addition to military exercises, there is a renewed focus on upgrading military infrastructure. Countries are investing in modernizing their armed forces, enhancing cyber defenses, and improving logistical capabilities. This comprehensive approach ensures that NATO is prepared for various types of threats, whether they are conventional military attacks or cyber warfare. The strategic importance of maintaining a robust military presence cannot be overstated. It serves as a deterrent to potential aggressors and reassures allies of their security commitments. The current geopolitical tensions have underscored the need for a strong, cohesive defense strategy among NATO members. The narrative also highlights the broader cultural and social implications of this shift towards militarization. There is an increasing awareness among the public about the potential for conflict and the need for national preparedness. This awareness is reflected in the growing support for increased defense spending and military readiness. In conclusion, the world is entering a new era of heightened military preparedness, driven by the complexities of international relations and the perceived need to counter threats. NATO's comprehensive approach to defense, involving joint military exercises, infrastructure upgrades, and increased defense spending, reflects the seriousness of the current geopolitical climate. As nations adapt to this new reality, the importance of maintaining peace and security through strength becomes ever more apparent.